Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy MKS here, back with another video. Today I've been quite active in terms of walking and going to the gym, to be fair to myself. As I mentioned in my earlier video, I went for a walk for, I suppose I've walked for probably 2.5 hours today actually overall. I didn't mention that in my last video, but overall I've probably walked for 2.5 hours or so, and also did some training at the gym and things like that. So I suppose I've been fairly active. I need to lose some weight. You probably can't tell. But anyway, in the thumbnail, I shared this, which one my sister's got me, which says, "This time next year we'll be millionaires," which is from a show called Only Fools and Horses, for anyone outside the UK. Most people in the UK would have probably heard of it, but it's a comedy show. It's a sitcom and that kind of thing. Especially older generations will remember it, and probably even some younger generations. But yeah, it says this time next year we'll be millionaires, and it's based on the character Del Boy. People in Britain will be like, I know that already, but yeah, I find it quite humorous. And my sister's got me this because she knows I've got funny humor, a strange humor. So and I would appreciate that, which I did, and I do. And I used this earlier, and I was going to put it in the dishwasher, but I decided to use it for the video because I thought it was quite fitting. For Celtic, hopefully they'll have billions even as soon as possible, preferably even this year. And this says girl power, which is another thing I hope Celtic to actually stand for, supporting girls in developing nations and things like that, girls and boys, I suppose. But yeah, I thought I'd mention that in the intro. But anyway, this is obviously part 4, which I didn't get around to finishing last night. I thought I'd wait till today. I still haven't managed to plan it as much as I would like because I kept thinking about different ideas and things. Another top, I think it was my same sister who got me that one, says Bazinga, for anyone who knows about Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory from America, of course. But yeah, Bazinga, Sheldon and all that kind of thing. Fortunately, I'm not as smart as Sheldon, but hopefully not as annoying as him either. But anyway, on to the topic of the video. As I say, I haven't planned it quite as well as I'd like, but as I often do for the 4th and final part, I thought what I would talk about is what I hope would have happened looking back into the future. So I hope to try and talk about that what I hope would have happened by the end, or well, ASAP really, not even the end of the year, but hopefully at the beginning of the year even. I would have liked, or even loved for it to happen at Christmas. But anyway, there's a few things I was going to say also, but I've realised the intro has gone on. I did realise it a bit before as well, but I realised the intro has gone on longer than planned. So here are ideas number 31 to 40, but as I say, looking at what I hope will have happened in the future, so to speak. So number 31, as obviously these videos are about, I dream that the club will get as much investment as possible, investors, sponsors, and that kind of thing. If I'm really dreaming, even banks, businesses, sovereign wealth funds, and things like that. I suppose I'm slightly worried that the club's socialist or left-leaning or anti-capitalist sort of fan base and its support for Palestine might put some investors off, but I hope that it won't, and hopefully it'll have the opposite effect in some ways. I think it'd be cool if the fans just welcome the investment, like even if they don't agree with some of the stuff, like even if they say, like some say Tories not welcome, I think they should get rid of that and say anyone who invests in the club and sponsors the club should be welcome, in my opinion. And it's a controversial one amongst Celtic fans, but that is the opinion I have. Number 32, I hope the club will have learnt, or will learn as soon as possible. Again, looking into the future, I hope the club will have learnt from other clubs about how to attract investment and things like that. Number 33, I dream that the club will be tax exempt, as I put in the Q&A and that kind of thing, or at least pay the lowest amount of taxes possible, which would be quite ironic considering it's what our rivals, or arch rivals, as I rather sarcastically say, our nearest and dearest rivals, got in trouble for. They got in trouble for some sort of tax avoidance or tax evasion, I suppose it would be, because that's actually illegal, whereas tax avoidance is not. But I would love for the club to. I know it has quite a socialist fan base, and I'm probably pretty much the only libertarian supporter of Celtic. But as a fiscally conservative person, who may well be one of the few, if not only, I'll say libertarian or even fiscally conservative Celts. As the club says, it's a club welcome for all, so I think they should get rid of the sentiment that Tories are not welcome or things like that. But I think due to the historical abuse or harsh treatment, prejudice, discrimination, and that kind of thing of the Irish diaspora in Scotland and around the world, and especially in the UK, historically, I think, and obviously given Celtic's Irish roots, I think that the club should be tax exempt or pay the least amount of taxes possible. And also because of the good work the club does. So I suppose those two things, the discrimination faced by the Irish diaspora and the good work the club does through the foundation, I would love for the club to pay the least amount of taxes possible, preferably zero, in my opinion. And some people might say that's selfish or whatever, but I think that the money that the club saves could be used for good causes. So although it would hopefully benefit the club, the money it saves could be used for good causes. And maybe if the club got lots of investment, the money the club wins for prize money, gains in prize money for like winning the league, hopefully, and whatever trophies the club wins, which I hope the club will win as many as possible. Maybe if the club doesn't really need the money, because if we do get in the future, if we do have wealthy investors, if we become a billionaire club or even a trillionaire club, if I'm really dreaming, then I suppose that money that we get in prize money could be donated to charities and things like that. So a lot of good can come from that. The more that, if the club gives 10% away to good causes, I think the more the club gets, arguably, the better. Number 34, if the club does not get tax exempted status or pay the least amount of taxes and get tax relief or things like that for the good work the club does, it may already have some of those things already, but I hope for them to get even better tax relief, tax cuts, incentives and things like that for the good work the club does, tax write-offs and things like that. And I think if the club can do that, and again, and it saves money, then instead of spending money on things that the government spends money on, like wars, things that many people might disagree with, politicians' wages, expenses and things like that, instead that money could go towards helping the homeless, disabled people and disadvantaged people in Glasgow and across Scotland and the UK and around the world. So it arguably would be better spent that way than on the state and the tax that the state collects. I'd love to know what you think about each of these ideas as ever, so you may well disagree, but if the club doesn't get those sorts of things, then maybe it could instead get the equivalent in funding, so it effectively break even with the taxpayer by getting lottery funding and state funding, which could sort of counterbalance the amount of tax the club pays. Although ideally, I'd love for the club to get as much money as possible. So if it was tax exempt and still got that investment on top of that, I think that would be pretty cool. However, I think the club should also use that money, as I say, for good causes, like helping victims of domestic violence or abuse or things like that, including what happened in the boys' club at Celtic, which was sort of connected to the club historically. Number 35, as I say, all possible sources of income. I think it would be cool if the club got as much money as possible from all sources of income, from reparations for colonisation of the Irish people, which is where a lot of Celtic's ancestry come from. A lot of Celtic fans' ancestry, possibly most Celtic fans' ancestry, comes from Ireland, which was colonised and went through the potato famine and things like that. And maybe they could work with other groups like members of the black community and Asian communities and countries that were colonised to look at ways to support them to get reparations, and in turn they can help the club. And I suppose one of the reasons why I want Celtic to be tax exempt is because I don't agree with spending money on wars, the weapons trade, the military industrial complex, or things like, or royalty, things like that. And I think a lot of Celtic fans don't really like to pay for those sorts of things, although they do want to do good things for the community. They do want to help homeless people, which the club does itself and its fans do as well, and they raise a lot of money for homeless people and for causes including Palestine, different causes around the world. So I think it would be better if the club had that money instead of spending on tax. It's a controversial view, but it is a view I have, so I'm going to be honest about it. Instead, they could spend that money on the good causes and the Football for Good Foundation and things like that, working with charities and NGOs and whatnot. Again, I'd love to know what you think about that, and do you disagree with me or agree with me on that, or any other points I make. I know some people are ardent that tax is really important, and which is their opinion, which is fair enough. And some might believe the state can spend that money better, but a lot of people might agree with me and say the state can be very, like, people don't trust the state or politicians, and they think they're corrupt, and there's like expenses, politicians' expenses, there's politicians who get high salaries and things like that while people are homeless and things like that. So I think the club could, if it does it right, which it already does, like things like sleep outs and things like that, which help the homeless. So I think the club could spend that money better. Number 36, in the future, hopefully the club will have the best possible partnerships with Italian football, or even Mediterranean teams generally, as well as like Middle Eastern, Eurasian, and other transcontinental countries. So hopefully they can have academies and train together and learn from each other, including about how to acquire investment, and hopefully Celtic can get investment from all over the world, including Middle East, some of that oil money. Banks, as I say, may oil be well, instead of may all be well, may oil be well. Hope that makes sense. Or banks a lot instead of thanks a lot. I know my jokes don't get any better, sorry. Number 37, hopefully the fans will find ways, or FIFA and UEFA hopefully will allow ways for fans to invest in the club and donate to the club even, and that kind of thing. Number 38, hopefully people from the Celtic countries as part of that, or fans from around the world basically as well, will be able to invest in it and donate to the club, and hopefully they will have done that in the future. Number 39, I was going to say in the intro, I was thinking about Christmas. I know it's a bit late for that now, but as we're already in January, but was like a week or 2 weeks, even 2 weeks ago, I think now. But what people say about Peter Lowell, or how they call him, Peter Lywell, Peter Padewell, say he's tight, and I was thinking they could call him the Grinch, or it'd be interesting if Celtic fans made songs calling him the Grinch, or things like A Christmas Carol. Before I heard of, and I watched A Christmas Carol, but I thought it was actually called A Christmas Carol. But I think, I thought it was called Scrooge, but obviously that's the name of the character. But it's actually called A Christmas Carol. Again, those in the UK would have heard of that, and maybe some from overseas, but some people probably don't know what that is. But it's about like Scrooge and how he was really tight. So I think it'd be interesting if Celtic fans made songs about that and stories about that, and like talked about him being visited by 3 ghosts, or 3 Celtic legends, or former Celtic legends, or people like Brother Wilfred, and talking about him investing money and things like that. I think that would be quite interesting. Again, I'd love to hear and read what Celtic fans think about that as well, about that idea, like making songs and stories, things like that, lyrics and whatnot, about Peter Lowell, say being visited by 3 Celtic ghosts, like Celts from the past, like Brother Wilfred, Jock Stein, and people like that, Tommy Burns and people like that, for instance. And number 40, again, I hope the club can and will get as much investment, and most importantly will get as much investment as possible in the club, and also most importantly reinvest that. I hope that the club will reinvest that. A lot of fans are worried about the club not spending and reinvesting in January and buying dud signings and things like that. So I hope the club will come out and prove their critics, including myself and other Celtic fans, wrong, and show that they're going to reinvest in not just project by players, but players who are ready to play for the team, as well as investing in the youth. I think it's important to have good players now, so the club doesn't miss out on like Champions League money, which to me would not be a very good business decision. But I wonder if that can convince Peter Lowell to open up the checkbook and show to fans like myself and other Celtic fans that he is reinvesting the money on players that are going to help to win the league. Again, I think that would be a smart business decision because it means that is more likely to win the league and get that Champions League money. But as ever, I'd love to know what you think about each point I make, and I'm going to stop waffling and I'm out. Peace out.